Good Tuesday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for April the 4th. Today we are reading together in Leviticus chapter 24, a shorter chapter compared to some others that we have looked at so far, but this serves as a good contrast chapter, you might say. We focused yesterday in chapter 23 on the annual sacrifices, the really special holy days that Israel would observe unto the Lord. Well, here in chapter 24, the first half of chapter 24, we're going to look at just the regular day-to-day type of activities that would be taking place within the tabernacle complex, within the sanctuary, and the way that the people would participate in that. And then also in the second half, we're going to see we have been talking a great deal about holiness and sanctification and showing reverence for Yahweh. Well, we're going to see in the second half of chapter 24 an instance where someone did not show reverence to Yahweh, but instead some way actually blasphemed and cursed the name of Yahweh. And that's going to lead into some teaching concerning the principles of retribution for various sins that could be committed among the people. So let's read that together here in Leviticus chapter 24, beginning in verse number 1. Leviticus 24, verse number 1, Yahweh spoke to Moses, command the Israelites to bring you pure oil from crushed olives for the light in order to keep the lamp burning regularly. Aaron is to tend it continually from evening until morning before Yahweh outside the curtain of the testimony in the tent of meeting. This is a permanent statute throughout your generations. He must continually tend the lamps of the pure gold lampstand in Yahweh's presence. Take fine flour and bake it into 12 loaves. Each loaf is to be made with 4 quarts. Arrange them in 2 rows, 6 to a row, on the pure gold table before Yahweh. Place pure frankincense near each row so that it may serve as a memorial portion for the bread and food for the bread and a food offering to Yahweh. The bread is to be set out before Yahweh every Sabbath day as a permanent covenant obligation on the part of the Israelites. It belongs to Aaron and his sons, who are to eat it in a holy place, for it is the holiest portion for him from the food offerings to Yahweh. This is a permanent rule. Now the son of an Israelite mother and an Egyptian father was among the Israelites. A fight broke out in the camp between the Israelite woman's son and an Israelite man. Her son cursed and blasphemed the name, and they brought him to Moses. His mother's name was Shelemith, a daughter of Dibri, of the tribe of Dan. They put him in custody until Yahweh's decision could be made clear to them. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, bring the one who has cursed to the outside of the camp, and have all who heard him lay their hands on his head, then to have the whole community stone him. And tell the Israelites, if anyone curses his God, he will bear the consequences of his sin. Whoever blasphemes the name of Yahweh must be put to death. The whole community is to stone him. If he blasphemes the name, he is to be put to death. Rather, the resident alien or the native. Verse 17, if a man kills anyone, he must be put to death. Whoever kills an animal is to make retribution or restitution for it, life for life. If any man inflicts a permanent injury on his neighbor, whatever he has done is to be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye to eye, tooth for tooth, whatever injury he inflicted on the person, the same is to be inflicted on him. Whoever kills an animal is to make restitution for it, or whoever kills a person is to be put to death, but whoever kills a person is to be put to death. You are to have the same law for the resident alien and the native, because I am Yahweh your God. After Moses spoke to the Israelites, they brought the one who had cursed to the outside of the camp and stoned him. So the Israelites did as Yahweh had commanded Moses. And that is Leviticus chapter 24. Again, previous chapters looking at the special holy days throughout the month, throughout the year and during various months that they were to observe. They were very specific instructions given to how they were to observe those particular holy days. Well, here in chapter 24, what about the just daily attention to the tabernacle and to the business of the tabernacle? That was also something the people were to participate in and support. And the way they would do that is they would do so through providing oil to the priest for the lamps that burned within the tabernacle, within the sanctuary. The command was for the Israelites to bring pure oil from crushed grapes for the light in order to keep the light burning regularly. It was Aaron and his son's responsibility to make sure it was burning from evening until morning. So even in the nighttime, there was to be this light before the sanctuary, before the presence of Yahweh, I believe, in to signify the presence of Yahweh here within the tabernacle, that this where God's presence was. During the daytime, the light was there. During the nighttime, there was even to be light there. Again, light in the Lord's presence. They were to continually tend to these lamps, making sure they were burning from evening until morning. And in doing so, not only were they, again, through this light representing the presence of Yahweh, but the people were also able to participate by providing the oil for the lights. But the people also participated in providing these loaves, this bread that was to go on the gold table that was before Yahweh. They were to provide this to the priest every Sabbath day, and these particular loaves were part of the priest's food. It belonged to Aaron and his sons, verse number 9, who are to eat it in a holy place. It is the holiest portion for him. Remember that part of the sacrifices were referred to as the most holy portions, because they were eaten by the priests, who were the mediators between the people and God and the people. So yes, they had these very special days that they attended to, but they also had just regular things they had to take care of every single week. Some of those things also would involve just the weekly sacrifices that would be offered. I know we had a comment about the various sacrifices, kind of the frequency of these sacrifices, when they would be given and such. This is going back to chapters 1 through 7. And looking at this particular graph that I have in my Bible, it talks about these various sacrifices. There's the burnt offering, there's the grain offering, there's the fellowship offering, the sin offering, the guilt offering. Some of these were done, let me see here, out of those 5 different offerings, 3 of them were voluntary. They were given just at various times, whenever people felt compelled to give them. Others were mandatory, whenever there was sin that was unintentionally committed, or if there was a need for purification for the unclean, or in reference to the guilt offering, it was mandatory whenever someone deprived another of his rights or desecrated something holy. Those are mandatory at those particular times. So there was something going on all the time throughout the temple, various offerings that were to be given for the people, by the people, for the priest, by the priest, so on and so forth. So constantly things being done in the tabernacle complex. Now, in the second half of the chapter, we have a case here of blasphemy. We have a case study of this blaspheming and cursing person. Again, this is an anti-holy situation. In fact, all of these situations that are described in the rest of chapter 24 are anti-holy situations. We're told that there is a mixed person here, a mix between a Jewish mother and an Egyptian father, and there was a fight that broke out between this mixed individual and a pure-blooded Jew. And it says that the mixed individual cursed and blasphemed the name, there's the Hebrew word for this is the Hashem. And in fact, later on, Jews are going to refer to the name of God as Hashem. They actually use Hashem almost as a name itself, because they don't want to say Yahweh. They had this very literal view of God's name, and out of fear and reverence for, they would not say Yahweh, or the pronunciation of that, the tetragrammaton, the YHWH, but instead they would just say Hashem. They would use the name Hashem. Well, this individual, although it's not exactly clear what it means to curse and to blaspheme, he did something obviously that did not show proper respect for Yahweh. Maybe he used Yahweh's name to curse the person. He invoked the name in a part of the curse, or maybe he cursed the name in some way. Whatever it was that he did, obviously there was a major transgression here, and because of that, the people basically brought him into custody until they waited for what Yahweh would tell them. He told them that those who heard, or to take the man outside the camp, and those who heard him say this, basically those who would give a testimony that would condemn this man, were to come forth and lay their hand on his head, and then they were to stone him, they were to kill him. And this was a warning that anyone who would curse God, this consequence would come upon them. Anyone who blasphemed God, this consequence would come upon him, because Yahweh's name is to be revered and to be respected. Again, you're not to take Yahweh's name in vain. And that would be, again, the name Yahweh itself, or referring to the Hashem, the presence, the entity of Yahweh. Cursing or blaspheming that would incur the same type of judgment. Well, there are some more instructions here just about how people be held accountable for various transgressions here in the rest of the text, beginning in verse 17. Obviously, the most serious would be if you killed a person. If you killed a person, if you murdered a person, well, then that would require your life to be taken as well. But you'll notice in verses 17, 18, there's a clear distinction between killing a person and killing an animal. If you killed a person, your life was required. If you killed an animal, well, you just had to give restitution for that animal, because that's property. You took that away from someone else. If you inflict permanent injury on somebody, it says whatever he has done is to be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Whatever injury inflicted on that person, the same is being inflicted upon him. This is known as the lex talionis, the Latin word for this particular type of, I believe it's the Latin word for this particular, this particular type of concept. Retribution in the same way for that which was committed. Some took this very literally, that if you took somebody's eye, your eye was done. Others took it not as literally, and what they did is, instead of a literal eye being given, then it would be a monetary amount in order to make restitution. In that way, there would be an equal, in a sense, monetary compensation given here. Now, whichever way this was applied, the concept behind it was still very much, if you do something, Yahweh is going to hold you accountable for that. You don't just get to do things and get away scot-free. God is a God of justice. And if you sin against his law, again, any of these things that would be done here, these would be transgressions against God's law, because they were not caring for your neighbor. They were not loving your neighbor as yourself. They were not caring for other living things, such as animals. Therefore, again, there is justice that has to be upheld. God is a God of justice. Therefore, there must be this compensation for the transgression. After this instruction is given, Moses and the people carry out what Yahweh said in verse 23, and they take the man outside the camp, and they do stone him. So Israel did as Yahweh had commanded Moses. This serves as a good bridge to connect these two sections. Again, we've been talking about the holiness of Yahweh. Again, the holiness code is all throughout here, all throughout this text, beginning back in chapter 18, I believe it is. Yeah, chapter 18 begins the holiness code, or I guess chapter 17. We're going to continue to see these themes throughout the rest of these chapters. Tomorrow's reading is going to be in chapter 25, as we read about Sabbath years and jubilees. Again, treating the land properly, respecting what Yahweh was going to give them as far as the land goes, that it was not just something that they were to take and to treat haphazardly, but they were to respect it and honor the way Yahweh would have them honor the land that had been given to them as a blessing, as a fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham. So we'll read about that tomorrow in chapter 25, the Sabbath years and the Jubilee. If you have any further questions or comments about this text, please feel free to give those here in the comments section. I appreciate the questions we have been getting, and hopefully some of the answers have clarified or have cleared up some of those questions. But please feel free to leave any questions or comments below. I appreciate you tuning in on this Tuesday. We'll be back at it again tomorrow, reading from Leviticus chapter 25. Take care, and God bless.